What's up, everybody? In today's video, we're going to be covering the book Retire Early with Real Estate by Chad Carson. Now, as you may know, if you watch my channel, I'm somewhat interested in the financial independence retire early movement, also known as FIRE, which is where you gain financial independence early on in your life and then you use that financial independence to retire early. I've been interested in this movement for a while, and because of that interest, I've checked out a lot of websites and resources, and one of the websites that I really liked is madfientist, madfientist.com. And he also has a podcast. He doesn't really release that many podcasts, but in one podcast he did have this real estate guy, Chad Carson, and they talked about real estate a lot, and it sounded really interesting. And similar to many Americans, I've always thought about real estate and whether I should buy and whether I should rent, because so many people do it and so many people talk about how great it is and how essential it is to financial independence. And because of that podcast and because of my thinking, I'm like, maybe there's something I am missing with real estate. Maybe there's a way that I can get in. And I also read another book recently by Nathan Laka about how to be a capitalist with no capital. And he also talks about getting real estate and renting it out. So I thought, I can read as many resources on this as possible so that I can become better at it. So I went ahead and picked up this book, Retire Early with Real Estate, from the library, as I'm fond to do, and I read through it. I can't really say that I enjoyed this book or that it's really informative. The book he tries to pack in too much to this book, Chad does, without providing any real substance. I thought this book was going to provide some real substance of how to get into real estate, what to look for, the metrics to look for, but there's not really what this book is. It starts out with just how to retire early, about using your savings and how to save. But not really good advice there either. Just you need to save money before you can implement any of these plans in here. And then the plans that he does provide aren't really groundbreaking, and he doesn't really provide any really good metrics. He provides examples of really low dollar amounts. And that's something that is kind of ridiculous about this book is the dollar amounts that he uses in here. But I'll get to that in a second. Another thing that he does in this book is he puts these case studies randomly throughout the book. It's not like a book of all case studies. He'll start the book about saving money, and then he goes into a case study of a person. In these case studies, he profiles people that use real estate, and he asks them 5 questions. And he doesn't ask them 5 questions specifically to them. He asks every single person that he does a case study on the same exact questions. So even though there might be an opportunity for him to ask better questions, he doesn't. He just asks the same questions, and they're all just basic. Do you use real estate? Yes. Is real estate your primary income? No. It's like that. It doesn't really get into the substance of how did they find their property? How did they manage it to the best? How did they become efficient? And there's one lady that talks about a capital to income ratio and how she learned that was the best, but he doesn't ask her any further, what is that ratio and how did you learn that and what should people be looking for? He just asks these same generic questions to the same people, and they all basically have the same exact answers, same exact canned answers. And those case studies provide no insight whatsoever into how those people got started and the metrics that they use themselves. That's another thing is this book is extremely generic. It doesn't talk about how to the best way to find a good property. How do you know if you're going to get in over your head? The best places for property taxes in the U.S. How to keep your expenses low. How much to put down for a down payment. He says put down whatever you can afford for certain things. And so it's not really helpful. It's just super generic. He does provide some plans that you can try to do if you're going to try to retire early with real estate. But it's one thing to keep in mind with this that he doesn't really explain is that real estate is going to tie up a lot of your money. If you put a down payment, and in order to avoid private mortgage insurance, for the most part, you have to put down 20%. So if you don't put down 20%, then you're going to have to get that insurance, and it's another fee. As I've talked about in my review of other books, percentages matter, and small habits matter. You might think you're getting away with a steal in real estate, but it's these small percentages of property taxes, of interest on your loan, of the insurance cost that you'll have to repair your real estate. And if you have a real estate management company managing your properties, then you'll be paying them. He doesn't really talk about all that. He kind of provides super generic numbers, and he doesn't talk about all these little fees that can add up. So that's something that I would keep in mind here, because he provides very generic advice with very generic numbers, and his numbers are really low. But even though his numbers are low, it shows like how you can use up all of your savings in real estate. And I do believe that you can retire in different asset classes with stocks or bonds or real estate, but you're going to be devoting a lot of your time to real estate if you go down this path. And that's basically the one thing you can learn from the case studies in this book, is that a lot of these people devote a lot of time to real estate. And there's many of them in here that say they don't, but if you are going to get into real estate like he's saying, then you are going to be spending a lot of time managing your properties, managing your expenses. And if you're not, then you're probably going to lose a lot of money in different forms, whether it's the interest on your loan, mortgage, insurance. You're going to buy in an area that's too expensive and your rental income isn't going to cover that, or your rental income is going to take forever to cover it, or you might buy in a downtime. And he provides examples of how buying in a downtime doesn't really matter. But again, you don't want to tie up all your money into one asset class like real estate. And if you do, you better be really good at it. So that's another thing you have to ask yourself if you really want to go into real estate, is, are you passionate about real estate? A lot of these people in this book are passionate about it. If you're going to go into real estate, you better be passionate about it, because it's going to tie up a lot of your money. Unless you're already extremely rich and you're only buying, and you're extremely rich, you live in an extremely affordable area, and it's not going to cost that much. A lot of the examples he has are $100,000 houses. He makes it seem like $100,000 houses are common in the United States, which it is not. And so if you live in a small town, then I think you can implement a lot of these plans. But if you live in a larger city in the United States, you're not going to be able to get real estate at the prices that he advertises in here. With that, I would say that this book is more for somebody that either has a lot of retirement money already saved up, like probably over $500,000, and lives in a more affordable area of the country. But if you don't fall into those, then you can't really implement any of the plans. And with that, I will cover some of the plans that he goes over in the book. The first plan that he has that you can try to implement to retire early is live in and then flip your property. This is where you buy a house and you live in it. And as you're living in it and saving money through your job or whatever means, you improve the house. As the house appreciates, you're able to realize that equity once you sell it. And then you can sell it and buy another house or buy more properties. And that's basically the first one. The second one is the BRRRR plan, which is BRRRR. And this is where you buy a property that has potential, then you rehab the property, then you rent the property out, and you refinance it using a long-term mortgage, and then you do this over and over. And basically, you're just financing your rental properties here, and this is basically just financing a rental. So hopefully your rental income is greater than your mortgage. And this is not really a super creative idea here. And he has an easy example. In all of his examples, like the expenses and cash up front becomes amazingly low, which is, a lot of times he talks about, do the work yourself or just hire, really affordable contractor. But again, the affordability depends on the size of the house and the area you live in. So if you're able to buy a house for only $100,000 in the area, of course the cost to refurbish that is not going to be that much because the house isn't worth that much. So it's all relative to where you live. Another one is the rental debt snowball. He talked about this a lot in the beginning of the book, so I thought this was going to be a really amazing plan. But it's just basically buying a bunch of properties and renting them out. So you save enough cash for down payments on multiple houses, like 3 houses, and then you rent them all out, and then you use the money from all those rentals to pay off the mortgage of one of the houses. And then once you're finished paying off that house, you go to the next house. And essentially you're paying down the mortgage and your savings will go up over time. So basically you're just you're playing the long-term game here. Your properties are investment properties, and you're just hoping that you have tenants all the time and that your rental income goes up. But if you can pay down all these houses, then it will help you to retire. And that's another thing to keep in mind here, is that if you are able to execute all of these, then you will be able to retire early. But also, like, you're taking out a lot of leverage. And that's one thing about real estate, is you are able to use a lot of leverage. For some reason in the United States, we can leverage up to buy a house, but we can't like leverage 5 times, 10 times to buy an index fund. If you're able to do that, it would be a better idea. But that's why so many people love real estate in the United States, because you can just get this huge asset with little money down. So if you're able to buy 3 income producing properties and keep them producing income, then why wouldn't you do that? It seems like a phenomenal idea. But of course, there's cases where the value goes down, your rental goes down, you have to put up too much with tenants, your expenses are too high, and things like that. But this is, a simple enough plan. If you have enough money to put down on 3 houses, again, his numbers here are $100,000. So it would be tens of thousands down on each house. And it wouldn't be too hard to do that. But again, if you have 3 houses that are rental properties, to think that you're going to be spending no time making sure those houses are rented and keeping up with it and maintenance. And if you don't want to put up with that and use a maintenance company, that's expenses. So to think that you're not going to be spending a lot of time doing this is just not correct. And if you aren't spending much time in this, then something's probably not going right somewhere, is my view. Another plan that he has is the all cash rental plan. This is where you just buy a house outright and then you rent it out. So basically you have an annuity coming in, and then you can use that money from that to buy more properties. So it's just, you don't have to take out a loan. You don't have all the expenses coming from a loan, like interest payments. And if you have PMI, then you don't have that either. And the last plan that I'll discuss is where he says you buy 3 houses, you sell 2 and keep 1. And this plan again is you buy 3 rental properties and you rent them out for like 5 years. And then by then hopefully you've appreciated 2 of those houses. You sell 2 of them, and you keep 1 to keep renting out for income. So as you see, he has these plans of different ways to make money off of real estate, but it's not really like how to select the real estate or expenses or problems or how to find good tenants or anything like that. It's just general plans of how to generate income from real estate. And it's not really specific to retiring early with real estate. It's just like save up a bunch of money and then make your primary asset class real estate. He says you shouldn't make it all about real estate, but I don't understand how you could execute this in a large metropolitan area without investing a lot of your money into real estate. But he also says if you can't afford it in your city, then look at a different city. But he doesn't say which cities are the best for this type of planning, which would also be helpful to do, but he doesn't do that. Like which cities have the lowest property tax, which ones have, essentially the lowest upfront cost to rental income. It doesn't say anything like that. Or metrics. He doesn't provide metrics of the most successful real estate investors or anything like that. So is it possible to retire early with real estate? Maybe, but I wouldn't do it, and I wouldn't follow his advice to do it either. I guess it's a long video just to say that I don't recommend this book. But if you're interested in learning about different real estate income ideas, you can just skim through this book and look through it. But that's really all I'd use this book for. But I am going to provide advice about other FIRE books that I think are more useful than this. So if you want to get those recommendations, then make sure to subscribe to this channel and like this video.